Shalom, shalom, and welcome. Welcome to White Robes family. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I am compelled to present to an awakening set-apart nation. This is the 74th installment of White Robes family, a specific series and playlist centered around things that are important as it relates to the realities of end time. My brothers and sisters, this one here, I will prove that it is akin to understanding one of the purposes of the seventh feast day, tabernacle. Some will call it the Feast of Booths. Though there's the literal definition, as we read in the scriptures, there's also a purpose behind it, of which I will present a case, as I have done in times past. In this particular installment, I want to bring your attention and your mind and your spirit to entrance and exit. Entrance and exit. Come with me, my brothers and sisters, for there are many things we must guard, many things which we must take on responsibility and know how to govern, as led by the Spirit of the Almighty Father. But let me first read the following. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Robes family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashyach. Referencing John 6:44. The content presented centers around end time realities. Please be advised this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age to be compliant with various media platforms. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence in or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and or viewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. Please note, I am not affiliated with anyone or organization with similar names. With that said, let's get into it, my brothers and sisters. Entrance and exit. My brothers and sisters, we have heard, we have been instructed to look at these earthen vessels as the house of Yahuah, a house that's not made by hands, the house of Yahuah. And I want you to take a moment to reflect on the house, apartment, the tent, the car, any type of physical shelter, and examine it. Are there entrance points? Are there windows or doorways? Are there cracks? Are there holes in the foundation? My brothers and sisters, some of us have experienced flooding in our basements. Some of us have experienced flooding in our homes. Some of us have experienced pestilence, insects getting in our dwelling places. Well, I say to you, O Yashar'al, these earthen vessels are also mentioned as a house. And when we think about how we want to protect ourselves from pestilence, insects, floods, leaks, and crumbling foundations, so shall we look at these earthen vessels. For our eyes and our ears are gates. Our spirit is housed in these earthen vessels, known as the inward man, our spirit. What we hear, what we see, can and all too often influence how we govern ourselves. Yashar'al, during these end times, as civil unrest ramps up, it is important to start thinking about guarding the house of Yahuah. It is also important to recognize that in this house, in this tabernacle, he will clean up. Whether we say Yahuah cleans these tabernacles or whether we say his discipline brings refinement, the function is a renewed earthen vessel as it relates to our actions, as it relates to walking in set apartness. Entrance and exit, my brothers and sisters. Let us guard them. Let us protect them. Let us know how to get the things out of them that needs to come out. and things that need to come in, allow them in. Let us learn when to speak, for out of our mouths exit the intent of the heart, the mind, the body. Let's get into some scriptures, my brothers and sisters, for I will share with you why I believe the tabernacle, the Feast of Tabernacle, has much more to say to us as it relates to managing our earthen vessel, as it relates to connecting these earthen vessels and building the house of Yahuah. Come with me. My brothers and sisters, the house of Yahuah. Make no mistake, as end times ramp up, the need for shelter is important for safety and other necessities. Shelter and safety is linked to the Feast of Tabernacle, or some will say the Feast of Booth. Consider Leviticus 23rd chapter, verse 33 through 37. It's saying, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yashar'al, saying, on the 15th day of the 7th new moon is the festival of Sukkot, Booths, or some will say tabernacle. For 7 days to Yahuwah. On the first day is a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On the 8th day there shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. Its closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you proclaim as set apart gatherings, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, an ascending offering, and a grain offering, and a slaughtering offering, and drink offerings as commanded for every day. My brothers and sisters, if you search the scriptures, you'll see that the Most High had instructed his prophets to teach us and guide us, to guard his instructions, to guard his ways, to honor and guard his set apart times. And though you have the literal Feast of Booths, Feast of Tabernacles, there's also a spiritual purpose that is to guard this house, that is to nurture this house, protect this house, and clean this house as the Spirit of Yahuwah works in us, through us. Let me continue. My brothers and sisters, end times will prove that we will know the purpose and function of these tabernacles, how we are to gather and be as one, how we will merge as the 144,000 begin to rise, how we will come together as the great multitude that's mentioned in Revelation 7:9 that I mention often. As we begin to emerge, my brothers and sisters, the importance of guarding, cleaning, and knowing the tabernacle individually and collectively is important. For as end times will prove that chaos, civil unrest, economic collapse, widespread death and destruction will be magnified in these days, my brothers and sisters. And we will seek refuge. And I say to you, my instructions to you, O Yashar'al, is to know refuge comes by the guidance of the Almighty Father. Do not fall for those who say we are going to be in a house together and saved. We are going to be gathered to the from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahusha. My brothers and sisters, refuge. There will be intermittent places and positions of refuge until we fulfill the task that we have been charged to do. I share this verse and I share it often. Proverbs 14:26 say, in the fear of Yahuwah is strong trust, and his children have a place of refuge. Understand this, O Yashar'al. Matthew 19:29 says, and everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, these are final days of man as we know it. It's time to face realities of being sheltered and becoming safe. It will prove that during these end times, being sheltered and safe It's intermittent. In other words, we may be safe in the shelter that we're in now, but that will change. For we will find that in the final Exodus, in these final days, as economic situations become dire, we will find, my brothers and sisters, movement is coming. Every living person on this planet will be moved out of place if they're physically alive. And in that movement will be times of shelter, times of safety. There'll be times to move and rest up and move some more and rest up. It will be important for us to discern when to move and when to be still, lest we find ourselves caught in the middle of earthquakes or tsunamis, in the middle of wars, in the middle of civil unrest, chaos, protests, riots. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, there is purpose in the 7 feast days, a purpose for vetting, examining things, to ensure that we are with the right people at the right time in the right place. There's purpose in understanding the need to guard entrance and exits, what we're taking in, what we're hearing, what we're seeing. We must guard and examine. We must vet. We must put to the test the things that are coming to us. We must learn to ask the right questions. I cannot stress that enough, O Yashar'al. There is more in the Feast of Tabernacle, and we will discover with each passing day, my brothers and sisters, there's so much to learn. There's so much to receive. Remember, 1 Peter 4:17 says, because it is time for judgment to begin from the house of Yahuah. That house have entrance and exits. That house have means in which things come into us and go out of us. And judgment comes. It's like one inspecting the windows, the doors, the foundations. It's like one inspecting the house for cracks, for flaws, for compromising conditions. And out of that judgment, we find ourselves rising as we are refined, repaired, and renewed by the blood of the Lamb and through his set-apart spirit working in us. It says, and if first from us, what is the end of those who do not obey the good news of the Almighty One? And if the righteous one is scarcely saved, where shall the wicked or the sinner appear? So then, those who suffer according to the desire of the Almighty One should commit their lives to a trustworthy Creator in doing good. My brothers and sisters, end times are here. And you may hear me speak of it often. What do you think is necessary to be prepared for such a time as this? Have you begun to have discussions with brothers, sisters, and leaders regarding what you should be doing? I see something I want to correct here, my brothers and sisters. Bear with me a second. When I identify these typos, I prefer to go ahead and correct them. Yashar'al, some of you may be tired of listening to these messages. Some of you may be realizing that, wow, I didn't know I was responsible for this earthen vessel, this tabernacle, in the way in which you put it. O Yashar'al, as we see the different ways that the Most High packaged the words that he would have come to our ears, as he guide us and have us demonstrate how we are to draw closer to him, we must come as responsible citizens of set-apartness, doing what is expected from the Almighty Father. And judgment does begin at the house of Yahuah first. Consider these connections to the Feast of Tabernacle. And I could very well say the Feast of Shelter. You see, my brothers and sisters, it is not always the words in itself, it is the functionality. What is a tabernacle? What is a booth? What is shelter? Consider these words, my brothers and sisters, in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16 through 18. And what union has the dwelling place of the Almighty One with idols? For you are a dwelling place of the living Almighty One, as the Almighty One has said, I shall dwell in them and walk in them, walk among them. And I shall be their Almighty One, and they shall be my people. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuah, and do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you. I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuah the Almighty. We are a dwelling place. We are that tabernacle of Yahuah, individually and collectively as a body of the children of Yashar'al, the children of Yahuah, chosen and set apart by him, by his orders. Consider Colossians 3:16. It says, let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master in psalms and songs of praise and spiritual songs. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, entrance and exit. What's coming into your ears? What's coming into your eyes? What's influencing you, and how are you managing it as it relates to your tabernacle, your body, or the assembly in which you are a part of, if you are? Let me continue. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, there will be a falling away. Now, I've spoken this before. So it would be like, as we find ourselves identifying these tabernacles, there'll be times where we will want to relocate as movement comes. Some cases we will leave things and people behind, as well as physical and literal shelters will be left behind. In some cases, some of us will carry tents or the very fabrics needed to make tents. We will find ourselves in motion, O Yashar'al, for we must be moved. Consider what I have here before you is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 through 7. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction. Falling away, there's movement. The tabernacles will be left behind, abandoned as far as literal shelters. Our spiritual and earthen vessels will be moved. There will be those that will face death, O Yashar'al. It says, the son of destruction, who oppose and exalt themselves above all that is called the Almighty One, that is worshipped, so that he sits as the Almighty One in a dwelling place, showing himself that he is the Almighty One. This is the anti-Messiah, known as the Antichrist. And I submit to you, when it says he's going to sit in the dwelling place, he's going to come to the camp of the gathered from the four corners of the earth. In his motion to attack us, he will make that choice. As we wait on Yahusha Mashyach, he's going to come and say, I'm here, you're waiting on me, here I am. And this is when the two witnesses will rise up from being dead, and the Mashyach will come and stop his attack on us, O Yashar'al. Pray and watch. The realities of what's ahead will come with a falling away. And we must be moved. Consider, my brothers and sisters, what the 7th verse says. 6th and 7th verse says, and now you know what restrains for him to be revealed in his time. For the secret of lawlessness, it's already at work. But only until he who now restrains come out of the midst. That is the set apart children of Yashar'al that have been sealed and ordered to fulfill the final exodus, to face physical death for Yahusha's name, to present final words to those around them, wherever they may be. For not everyone will be gathered from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahusha. But until that final exodus, we will not see the fullness of the anti-Messiah and the mark of the beast in its fullness. And we are closer to that time, O Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, it's time. It's time for us to discover more details regarding this tabernacle. You see, for those who have children, physical shelter, do you want pedophiles? Do you want people because they look set apart because they're wearing so-called Hebrew garments? Do you want someone because they say, oh, I follow the laws, statutes, and 10 commandments just because they say it? Or do you want to vet? Do you want to examine? Do you want to be as home inspectors, tabernacle inspectors, to make sure everything is in place for you, your children? And if you don't know what to do you have a leader that's covering you, a shepherd, a husband, or a shepherd over his flock? Regarding the tabernacle, look at it from an individual perspective, look at it from a household perspective, look at it from a collective assembly perspective. For we are the house of Yahuah, the tabernacle, and we must always be mindful of what's in it, what's coming out of it, O Yashar'al. We must know the importance of being responsible, our brothers and sisters. Let's yield and recognize moving from one to many as set apart tents or booth. And I see a typo on this one here, which I will correct while in motion, my brothers and sisters. I want to ask your patience as I make this correction. Some of you may be listening and not even looking at the slides, but it's something that needs to be corrected. And while I see it, I will make that correction. So I thank you for your patience, my brothers and sisters. Have you had discussions with a brother, a sister, your more, your community head? Have you had discussions as it relates to this tabernacle, this body, this assembly, as it relates to maintaining it in the event there are those who are no longer there, whether they die or leave, whether they come away erroneously, or whether they come because they are ordered to do other duties? Have you had discussions on what is expected from the Almighty Father? Or are your community heads, your leaders, your mores, your teachers, your bishops, your pastors, are they trying to tell you you need to stay with them? Or are they saying, I want you to grow in discerning what the Spirit of Yahusha is saying, what Abba Yahuah's Spirit is saying to you, and we will acknowledge it, and we will support what the Most High is saying? There will be those that will come and those that will go. There will be those that will perish. There will be those that will fulfill the final exodus in between. Consider these words, O Yashar'al. Romans 12th chapter, verse 4 and 5 says, for as we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function. And when we don't have the same function, that means our positions might be in different places, O Yashar'al. So we, the many, are one body in Messiah and members each one of one another. Romans 12, 4 and 5. Come with me to 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12 through 14. It reads, for as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body being many are one body, so also is the Messiah. For indeed by one Spirit we were all immersed into one body, whether Yehudim or Greek, whether slave or free, and we are made to drink into one spirit. For indeed the body is not one member, but many. Now many people take this passage in the 13th verse in the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians 12, 13. They take that to mean it doesn't matter whether you're Greek or Yehudim. My brothers and sisters, it is important to recognize that in order for various scriptures to be fulfilled, how can we know that Hebrews and Gentiles are made one if we can't distinguish who a Hebrew and a Gentile is, or Abrahym and Goym? How can Revelation 7 chapter be fulfilled if we cannot identify the nationalities, the many nations, kindreds, and tongues? What it is saying here is, my brothers and sisters, once we recognize our nationality, our race, Yahuah landscaped the planet with many colors, many plants, many diverse species. So has he, by his breath, allowed us to live, people of many colors, many hues, and many nations. But it is through Yahusha Mashyach, those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father are made one. It doesn't mean ignore specific nationalities, because remember Revelation 7:9, the 12 tribes as mentioned in the 7th chapter of Revelation, in order for it to be fulfilled, we must recognize nationality. But we must not just recognize nationality and forget the diversity in the set apart body of Yashar'al, a nation, a set apart nation of people. Entrance and exit. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you discussing? Where are you going? Have you discovered answers in the midst of what's unfolding? My brothers and sisters, it's very important to know what is expected during movement times as relates to safety and shelter. You see, if the Almighty Father, and he will for many, is directing our footsteps and we are in motion, if we are to make it from point A to point M, and there are times we will stop and rest, there must be and will be places of safety and shelter as we intermittently find ourselves moving from the four corners of the earth towards the promised land, those who are directed to do such. Those who are not, still the Most High will guide us to where we're supposed to be and what it is we're supposed to do until we take our last breath. Entrance and exit. What's coming into your ears, my brothers and sisters? What do you see? What do you bear witness to? It is important to know what is expected. Have these discussions, real discussions. Seek out answers, O Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, can you identify set-apart times? Can you identify that it's time to define times to guard the tabernacle, when to guard it, when to put it in action? Why it's so important how we govern ourselves towards demonstrating the set-apart life that the Most High has given us. Why it's important to understand the blood of the Lamb. Why it's important to understand that as the flesh war against the spirit, we are made stronger by the spirit and power and might of the Almighty Father. And in that strength, we have the strength to guard the tabernacle. Let us not fall for anything that is said. Let us not just fall into submission to people who use scriptures to try to manipulate. If a leader, a moreh, a teacher, a pastor, is not teaching you how to discern the voice of Yahuah so that you can discern whether he or she is operating in set apartness, then you may want to rethink, is that really the leader you want to be with? Understand these words, O Yashar'al. There will be unity. There will be a gathering from the four corners of the earth. The 444,000 will rise. The great multitude will emerge. End time prophecies will be fulfilled. Yashar'al, hear me, my brothers and sisters. Time to clearly see purpose in the Feast of Tabernacle beyond just gathering and saying, do you honor the feast? Know what it means. Know its purpose. Pass it down to your children. Teach them how to guard and value the body that they are receiving breath from Yahuah to live. Teach them how to be responsible and accountable. Let us learn to grow as good stewards and set apartness as we manage these earthen vessels that are indeed the tabernacle of Yahuah for those whom are his, for he dwell in us, O Yashar'al. And for those of us who are able to discern when we see a brother or sister falling, stumbling, and we pray for them, intercessory prayer first, and we provide instructions to bring correction. And if they reject it, my brothers and sisters, we step back and watch the power and might of the Almighty Father. Now, there are protocols given in certain situations. Some cases, there's open rebuke as directed by scriptures. In some cases, it's go to one, then go in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and then take them before the assembly. There's a time where each one has its place when it comes to restoring, reproving, and demonstrating discipline, my brothers and sisters. Time to clearly see the purpose of the Feast of Tabernacle. It is to come together to demonstrate what set apartness is in these earthen vessels and how we are to reinforce, inspect, clean, make anew our tabernacles individually and collectively. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Have you become aware of set-apart plans as it relates to your tabernacle? Are there discussions on what to do? Are they clear? Could you repeat the instructions you're receiving from your leader, your moderator, your teacher, as it relates to these end times, as it relates to what to do? Are your glasses clean? Are you able to physically see? Can you hear? If you're blind and can't hear, what say you within your spirit? Can you discern the life that the Almighty Father has given you and enriched you? Each of us, O Yashar'al, are part of the plan of the Almighty Father. Some will do better than others as it relates to walking in obedience. I say to you, as for me, my brothers and sisters, the Most High Father has given me insight to the development of a plan that will contribute towards the gathering of Yashar'al. And I speak of it often, so I will not go through each bullet. You can pause it, look at it, read it, or have someone read it to you. Ask questions, my brothers and sisters. I don't have the end-all, be-all plan, but I can assure you these plans have links that will connect with other plans as we witness the emergence of the set-apart children of Yahuah coming together. And with any plan, as you hear me speak in time past, it comes with a cost. Count the cost, O Yashar'al. Remember Matthew 25:14-30. It speaks of the talents. Lose what you have or use what you have as directed by the Almighty Father. I invite you to subscribe, to share this and these and other messages to those whom you believe need to receive what I am saying, if you indeed believe these words are true. Support by getting involved, O Yashar'al. Become active, for things are in motion. Will you be a part? Are you a part now of motion, active plans for the gathering of Yahuah? Or are you a part of a community that's just trying to present and push their brand and logo? Are you a part of a camp that's trying to just present their logo, their designs, their image? Or are you a part of a fellowship that speaks of the growing of a set-apart nation that will come together Watch the hand of the Almighty Father, for in the coming days he will remove all obstacles, whether it means sickness unto death, or whether it means humbling them to get in place, to get in position. My brothers and sisters, if you want to provide any type of financial assistance, you may do so through Cash App, White Rose Family, or email me and let's talk about how you can get involved. If you're not actively receiving instructions, ask questions. Seek out answers with a willingness to identify your part. And I can assure you, my brothers and sisters, there are those whose spirit is stirring within, stirring inside, and they will find no peace until they yield to the obedience from the Spirit of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name. For he will stir, he will discipline, he will refine, he will bring us to where we need to be, O Yashar'al. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. You have been listening to Entrance and Exit, talking about the tabernacle. Think about all the things that you see in a house that makes you feel comfortable, that does not violate or contradict Scripture. Think about all that's in your apartment or in your car, RV, your truck, your tent. Whatever you have as shelter, look at how things can come in and go out. Look at how you can protect it, how you can organize it. Look at knowing when to move, when to walk away. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. We are not, let me say again, we are not going back to the way things used to be. We are pressing forward into the times that have been prophesied. So you, O Yashar'al, let us ask questions. Let us become more acquainted with one another. Let us draw closer together. For soon and very soon, there will be those caught in the congestion of trying to flee from disasters and diseases, and trying to flee from cities and municipalities or states where you will find yourselves barricaded and locked in. Pray and watch. And if you are one who are locked in, barricaded, know this, that the Almighty Father has provided all the information that we need for wherever state we find ourselves in as we are breathing. The Most High Father has an answer for us on how to govern ourselves. On that note, I say to you, O Yashar'al, rise up and assume the responsibility. Understand that we are held accountable for these earthen vessels. Let us protect the entrance and the exit. Let us guard and know what to release and what to take in. On that note, I salute your patience, your tolerance, your pursuit of set apartness. With all the love I can have through Yahusha Mashyach, I send to you, O Yashar'al, that you grow in discernment as an individual and collectively as we begin to witness the coming together of the children of Yahuah to fulfill these final days. Until next time, stay tuned, for there is more to come. I say, my brother, my sister, Shalom. Shalom.